Camera number 351 of 365 is the Nikon F5. If I'm honest, I've been putting this off a little bit because slightly daunted by the number of features and how I would go about perhaps demonstrating the camera. But we'll give it a try. We'll try and keep it as simple as possible. I'm not going to be able to cover all details in detail, but I'll try my best to cover most of the features. Otherwise the video will go on way longer than it should. And partly because I'm a Nikonite, I like Nikon cameras, I like the methodology, so it is one of my favourite cameras. Not a camera I've shot a lot of, if I'm perfectly honest, primarily because I've been slightly sidetracked by a certain project with other cameras, but I was so pleased to be able to put a roll through the camera and be reunited with it. So it requires batteries to operate, and the batteries are housed in the battery chamber, which is on the side here, and you undo it and take out the cradle. Now the cradle takes 8 AA batteries. In the manual it suggests that I think it's lithium batteries seem to give a little bit more in terms of getting through numbers of films, potentially up to double than these alkaline batteries, but otherwise it takes quite happy with both, but that's maybe a consideration if you're using it a lot. So there's the cradle, we put it back in to the camera and twist, and then we're locked, and then we're good to go now. So I thought I'd perhaps approach the camera review with in terms of, right, what do you do next? Well, you put a lens on, generally speaking. So being an autofocus camera, it will take pretty much any autofocus lens. It will take any Nikon lens really, the AI lenses, but of course you lose that ability of autofocus, but you do get electronic rangefinder, and then as you go further down the list of older lenses, you obviously decrease how many features you get. So if you're going to be using an f5, you really want to be using potentially a autofocus lens. So I've actually got this VR lens. Obviously the VR doesn't work, but it's a Nikon 70-300 AFS lens, which I like. And it means I can share it, because often I'm out with my digital camera, so it means I can share this lens and swap them between cameras. It's a bit big, but there you go. So it's quite happy with G lenses. There is no aperture ring. That can be changed via the main command dial, which is at the back here. So we benefit from that point of view. We also benefit from 3D matrix metering, and again that will not be available if you use older lenses. You'll go to ordinary matrix metering, but even so that's certainly worth a consideration. And then again, further go down, manual lenses obviously. Even manual lenses you will get matrix metering, but particularly spot metering. So as I say, if you're going to be using this sort of camera, you really want to be using an autofocus lens, but of course you don't have to. I will take the lens off, and I do that by pressing the lens release, which is this top button here, because you won't be able to see the camera. So let's take that lens out. So we'll put the lens cap back on. So just below the lens release on our left here, we have our lever that selects our drive mode. It's currently set to single, but we can do continuous. So with continuous mode, we also benefit from tracking, focus tracking. And then, as I say, if we have a manual lens, we can just move it onto manual, and then we can manual focus, and we have this electronic rangefinder. We have our little port for, I think it's flash, if that's right. Yep, that would be a flash there. But of course, we can put receivers on it and take the flash off the camera and benefit from that as well. And then over the other side, we have a depth of preview. There we go. Depth of preview lever, or button rather. So that's that one. And then below that, we have our mirror lockup, which is always good to see. So mirror lockup. So for some, oh, there we go. Okay, so that's mirror lock up. Excellent, good. Okay, let's put that back on again. And then we have our little window in our head here that allows us to see our aperture. So that's those 4 buttons there. We have our sub command dial on the front there, our shutter release, our off on button. And then of course the camera benefits from an additional shutter release with the vertical grip. So we have our shutter release there. We also have a similar command dial here. Sorry, that's the command dial, sorry. This is a remote cable that can be put in there. But we also have back button focusing, either here or on the main body. And then we have the ability to perhaps change our focus point there. And then staying with the back, so back button focusing, we have auto exposure and auto focus lock button. We have our main command dial just here. And then we have our little button that disengages the film advance so that we can manually rewind our film. But if we want to benefit from auto rewind, then we press button number 2 as well. So we can do that, but I think we have to lift that up, if I remember rightly. No, we don't. Push it down, I can't remember now, to be perfectly honest, but there's 2 buttons anyway if we want auto wind back into the camera. The camera clearly harks back onto the old way of thinking with buttons dedicated for specific purposes, but there's an awful lot of locks and safety features. So to pull our rewind crank out, we have to press this little arrowed button that allows us to lift our film rewind, and then we can open our film. We have DX coding, but we do have the ability to have changed that manually. Okay, and then we put that back down. Drive modes, we can go from single, but again we have to unlock it with this little top where my finger is. So we have single, continuous low, continuous high, continuous silent, and then a self timer. So let's just try the self timer. Let's just turn it on now. To turn it on again, safety button, press the button, and then we'll do a self timer. So I'll just turn the microphone around so you can benefit from the So as you can tell, it's quite a noisy camera, so that's probably one of the reasons why it has this silent feature. It does dampen, obviously, the sound down, but it's still going to be a noisy camera. But then that isn't a problem in the circumstances in which you would normally use this camera. So our head, like the previous iterations of the camera, is we can take that off. Right, so this is our finder release button, which we just press and then we slide off the head, being very careful. Again, very modular. We can change our screen, but we can see the evidence of electronics, which we haven't previously seen in the camera. Let's just put that head back on by just, in theory, sliding. There we go. We have a blind for astro or nighttime photography if we so desire. Oops, I think it goes one way. Can't seem to do that one. Nope, I'm sure there's a reason why. I can't think of it at the moment. There we go. Yeah, so that's the blind anyway. We have a diopter for changing to our particular eye or with spectacles. Again, welcome feature. And then we have our exposure modes. We have matrix, we have center weighted, and then spot. And then coming over the other side, we can fine-tune that by selecting our focus point. And I presume press that. Looking through the viewfinder, we can choose our point. There we go. There it is. It's actually in the screen here. I press that and rotate that. Can't actually see, sorry. Yes, it is actually. Yeah, so by using this dial, we can change our focus point. There are 5 focus points. And when we look through our viewfinder, we get a full range of information, our aperture, our shutter, electronic rangefinder. With the electronic rangefinder, that's quite useful with manual lenses. You get an indication along the top and the side which point it's been used, focus point, and also indication that you've achieved focus, which in the green light, which is good. Okay, so are you still with me? Because there's just a few more things to go. Mode, we go through the usual modes: aperture priority, program mode, shutter priority, manual, that's program, miss shutter, there we go, shutter. Okay, let's just put it back to, get it, to go, there we go, aperture. And then exposure compensation button. We also have, I think that's, if I remember rightly, I'll have to check the manual again, sorry. That's the it's the multiple exposure button. There we go. Okay, so that's pretty much it on the front here, but there's still others. There's a little panel here where custom functions, there's about 24. There's no way I'm going to go through them. You turn them off or turn them on. Things like, does the camera wind the film on when you close the door, or does it not? Different ways of using the buttons, all of those can be configured to your particular liking. Flash mode, we can go through the different modes of fill-in flash and those sorts of things. We can choose our ISO, and then a bracket set can be chosen via that button. The L button is, if I remember, nope, I can't remember what the L button is. That's to do with locking things, I think. Shutter speed, aperture, focus area lock, according to the manual. There you go. So you're really going to have to read the manual. It's 170 pages, which again is an indication of how many features there are and makes my life very incredibly difficult. But I hope you found that interesting. Quick overview of the camera. Certainly is a very nice camera. I must say I do like it a lot. I should use it far more than I do. Of course, with a camera like this, shutter gets through film quite quickly. There is a video I've posted on my Flickr account. If you're interested, I'll post a link in the comments. How quickly does the Nikon F5 get through a 36 exposure film, and even comparing that with the F4. So if you want to look at that, you're interested in that, please go to the link that's going to be posted in the comments. So I hope you found that interesting. That's the Nikon F5, and that has been camera number 351 of 365.